If this kind of psychology content helps you understand yourself more deeply, consider subscribing. This channel is for people who've always felt a little different. If you distance yourself from people easily, you probably don't do it dramatically. You don't storm out. You don't make speeches. You just pull back. You stop sharing. You stop explaining. And at some point, you quietly detach. From the outside, it can look cold or avoidant or like you don't care. But psychology tells a very different story. Before anything else, this needs to be said clearly. Distancing yourself doesn't mean you lack emotional depth. It usually means you have too much of it, and your mind learned a specific way to protect it. Here's how that pattern often forms. One of the most common reasons people distance themselves easily is emotional self-protection. If you've been hurt, misunderstood, dismissed, or drained in past relationships, your nervous system remembers that. Psychology shows that the brain doesn't just store memories as events. It stores them as patterns of safety and threat. So when you sense familiar signals, disrespect, inconsistency, emotional pressure, or subtle manipulation, your system doesn't wait for proof. It responds early. Pulling away becomes a way to prevent deeper harm. Not because you're fragile, but because your brain learned to recognize when connection starts costing more than it gives. The second pattern is a low tolerance for emotional confusion. You may notice that you distance yourself fastest when relationships feel unclear. Mixed signals, unspoken expectations, emotional games. Psychology suggests that people who value clarity often disengage when communication becomes indirect or emotionally chaotic. Your brain prefers clean emotional environments, not perfect ones, but honest ones. When interactions feel draining instead of grounding, your system interprets that as a signal to step back. This isn't avoidance, it's discernment. Another key pattern is strong internal independence. Many people who distance themselves easily learned early how to rely on themselves. You became emotionally self-sufficient. You figured things out internally instead of leaning outward. Psychology shows that this often develops when emotional support was inconsistent or unreliable at some point in life. As an adult, this looks like independence, but it also means you don't cling. When a relationship stops feeling aligned, you don't chase reassurance. You disengage. Not because you don't value connection, but because you already know how to stand alone. The fourth pattern is sensitivity to emotional imbalance. You may notice that you distance yourself when you start giving more than you're receiving. More effort, more understanding, more emotional labor. Psychology explains that emotionally aware people are often quick to notice imbalance, even when it's subtle. You feel it before you can explain it. And instead of arguing or over-explaining, your system chooses distance as a way to restore balance. This isn't passive aggression. It's boundary enforcement without confrontation. The fifth pattern is depth over attachment. You don't distance yourself because you don't care. You distance yourself because shallow connection doesn't satisfy you. Psychology shows that people who seek depth tend to disengage from relationships that stay surface level for too long. Small talk without meaning, closeness without honesty, connection without emotional presence. Over time, your system stops investing in what doesn't feel real, and rather than forcing yourself to stay, you step back. Here's the turning point most people misunderstand. Distancing yourself easily doesn't mean you're incapable of closeness. It means your brain learned that closeness should feel safe, mutual, and respectful. When those conditions aren't present, distance feels like relief, not loss. The shift happens when you stop asking, "Why do I pull away so easily?" and start asking, "What am I protecting myself from?" That question changes the narrative. It reframes distance as intelligence, not deficiency. It turns withdrawal into information. The resolution isn't about forcing yourself to stay connected longer. It's about choosing connection that doesn't require you to abandon yourself. Emotional clarity comes when you recognize that not every relationship deserves unlimited access to you. You're allowed to step back. You're allowed to disengage. You're allowed to choose peace over proximity. If you distance yourself from people easily, it doesn't mean you're emotionally unavailable. It often means you're emotionally aware. Aware of your limits. Aware of your needs. Aware of what drains you versus what sustains you. And when you understand that, distance stops feeling like a flaw. It starts feeling like a form of self-respect. If this resonated, you're not alone in it. Many people carry this pattern quietly, never realizing it developed for a reason. Sometimes psychology simply gives language to what you've always felt. That understanding alone can be grounding.